Hello friends. I am Satish Lele. This video is part of my chemical process piping channel on YouTube. This video is about codes and standards.
For piping systems, proper selection of material of construction along with specifications and adherence to codes and standards is essential.
Standardization reduces cost, confusion, and inconvenience. Standards are published by professional societies, committees, and trade organizations. Code is also accepted by government. The main objective is to have standardization and safety. The group of general rules or systematic procedures for design, fabrication, installation, and inspection methods prepared in such a manner that code can be adopted by legal jurisdiction and made into a law. Standards, documents prepared by a professional group or committee which are believed to be good and proper engineering practices and which contain mandatory requirements. Recommended practices. Documents prepared by professional group or committee indicating good engineering practices, but which optional. Companies also develop guides in order to have consistency in the documentation. These cover various engineering methods which are considered good practices, without specific recommendations or requirements. Codes and standards, besides being regulations, might also be considered as design aids since they provide guidance from experts. Each country has its own codes and standards. On a global basis, American national standards are the most widely used and compliance with those requirements are accepted world over. In India, other than American standards, British and Indian standards are also used for design and selection of piping systems. American standards. Not all American standards are issued directly by American National Standards Institute. The material standards are covered under ASTM, American Society for Testing and Materials, and Dimension Standards under ANSI, American National Standards Institute. Most of these standards are adopted by ASME, American Society for Mechanical Engineers. The American standards preferred by piping engineers are AISI, American Iron and Steel Institute. These specify a material by its chemical and physical properties. When specific model or manufacture of the element is not to be specified, then the material can be identified by ANSI standards. ASME. Most of these standards are adopted by ASME, American Society for Mechanical Engineers. ASTM. These are material standards covered under ASTM, American Society for Testing and Materials. Principal design codes used for piping design are ANSI or ASME 31.3, which is code for process piping. Complementing these codes are ASME Section VII, which is code for pressure vessel. V31.3, 2002 is code for process piping design of chemical and petroleum plants and refineries. Processing chemicals and hydrocarbons, water and steam. This code contains rules for piping in chemical, pharmaceutical, textile, paper, semiconductor, and cryogenic plants, and related processing plants and terminals. This code prescribes requirements for materials and components, design, fabrication, assembly, erection, examination, inspection, and testing of piping. This code applies to piping for all fluids including raw, intermediate, and finished chemicals, petroleum products, gas, steam, air, and water. This code also applies to piping for fluidized solids, refrigerants, cryogenic fluids. Also included is piping which interconnects pieces for stages within packaged equipment assembly. Other American National Standards Institute standards used in design of piping systems, ANSI 31.1 of 2001 for power piping, ANSI 31.2 for fuel gas, ANSI 31.4 for pipeline transportation system for liquid hydrocarbon and other liquids, and ANSI 31.5 for refrigeration piping. Other American National Standards Institute standards used in design of piping systems, ANSI 31.8 for gas transmission and distribution piping system, ANSI 31.9 for building services piping, ANSI 31.11 for slurry transportation piping system, ANSI 31.g is a manual for determining remaining strength of corroded piping, which is a supplement to ANSI 31. The American Petroleum Institute API standards referred by piping engineers are API 5L for specification for line pipe, API 6D for pipeline valves, and closures, connectors and swivels, API 6F for recommended practice for fire test for valves, API 593 for ductile iron plug valves for flanged ends, API 598 for valve inspection and test, API 600 for steel gate valves, API 601 for metallic gaskets for refinery piping. Other standards referred by piping engineers are API 602 for compact design carbon steel gate valves, API 604 for ductile iron gate valves for flanged ends, API 605 for large diameter carbon steel flanges, API 607 for fire test for soft seated ball valves, API 609 for butterfly valves, API 11 for standard for welding pipeline and facilities. American Iron and Steel Institute AISI specifies material by its chemical and physical properties of stainless steels. The most commonly used AISI specifications are AISI 410 for 13% chromium alloy steel, AISI 304 for 18/8 austenitic stainless steel, AISI 316 for 18/8 austenitic stainless steel. Other major ANSI or ASME standards referring for the piping elements are ANSI 1.1 for unified inch screw threads, ANSI or ASME 1.20.1 for pipe threads for general purposes, ANSI or ASME 16.1 for cast iron pipe flanges and flanged fittings, ANSI or ASME 16.3 for malleable iron threaded fittings, ANSI or ASME 16.4 for cast iron threaded fittings, ANSI or ASME 16.5 for steel pipe flanges and flanged fittings, ANSI or ASME 16.9 for steel butt welding fittings, ANSI or ASME 16.10 for face-to-face and end-to-end dimensions of valves, ANSI or ASME 16.11 for forged steel socket welding and threaded fittings, ANSI 16.20 for metallic gaskets for pipe flanges for ring joint, spiral wound, ANSI or ASME 16.21 for non-metallic gaskets for pipe flanges, ANSI or ASME 16.25 for butt welding ends, ANSI or ASME 16.28 for short radius elbows and returns, ANSI or ASME 16.34 for steel valves, flanged and butt welding ends, ANSI or ASME 16.42 for ductile iron pipe flanges and flanged fittings for class 150 pound and 300 pound. Fancy or ASME 16.47 for large diameter steel flanges for MPs or 26 inches to 16 inches. Fancy or ASME 18.21 and for square and hexagonal head bolts and nuts inch and millimeters. Fancy or ASME 36.10 for welded and seamless wrought steel pipes. Fancy or ASME 36.19 for welded and seamless austenitic stainless steel pipe. American Water Works Association AWW. These standards refer to the piping elements required for low-pressure water services. These are less stringent than other standards. Valves, flanges, etc. required for large diameter water pipelines are covered under this standard and are refereed rarely by piping engineers. Some standards refereed are C500 gate valves for water and sewage system, C504 rubber-seated butterfly valves, C507 ball valves 6 inches to 48 inches, C508 swing check valves 2 inches to 24 inches, C509 resilient seated gate valves for water and sewage, C510 cast iron sluice gate valves. The Manufacturers Standardization Society of Valves and Fitting Industry Standard Practices MSSFP. In addition to the above standards and material codes, there are standard practices followed by manufacturers. These are published as advisory standards and are widely followed. The most common MSSFP standards preferred for piping are MSSFP 6 Standard Finishes for Contact Surface for Flanges, MSSFP 25 Standard Marking System for Valves, Fittings, Flanges, MSSFP 42 Class 150 Corrosion Resistant Gate, Globe and Check Valves, MSSFP 43 Wrought Stainless Steel Butt Weld Fittings, MSSFP 56 Pipe Hanger Supports Explaining Material, Design and Manufacture, MSSFP 61 Pressure Testing of Valves, MSSFP 67 Butterfly Valves, MSSFP 68 High Pressure Off-Seat Butterfly Valves, MSSFP 69 Pipe Hanger Supports, Selection and Applications, MSSFP 70 Cast Iron Gate Valves, MSSFP 71 Cast Iron Check Valves, MSSFP 72 Ball Valves, MSSFP 78 Cast Iron Plug Valves, MSSFP 80 Bronze Gate, Globe and Check Valves, MSSFP 81 Stainless Steel Bonnet Latch Knife Gate Valves, MSSFP 83 Pipe Unions, MSSFP 85 Cast Iron Globe Valves, MSSFP 88 Diaphragm Valves, MSSFP 89 Pipe Hangers and Supports Explaining Fabrication and Installation Practices, MSSFP 90 Pipe Hangers and Supports with Guidelines on Terminology, MSSFP 92 MSS Valve User Guide, MSSFP 108 Resilient Seated Eccentric C-Plug Valves. British Standards. In many instances, it is possible to find the British standard which may be substitutes for American standards. For BS 2080 British standard for face-to-face or end-to-end dimensions of valves is identical to ANSI/ASME 16.10. Similarly, BS 3799 and ANSI/ASME 16.11 also compare. There are certain British standards preferred by Indian manufacturers for piping hand valves. The most commonly preferred British standards in the piping industry are BS-10 flanges, BS-806 pipes and fittings for boilers, BS-916 black bolts, nuts and screws, BS-970 steel for forging, bar, rods, valves, steel, etc. BS-1212 specification for float-operated valves, BS-1306 copper and copper alloy pressure piping system, BS-1414 gate valves for petroleum industry, BS-1560 steel pipe flanges, BS-1600 dimensions of steel pipes, BS-1640 welding fittings, BS-1740 wrought steel screw pipe fittings, BS-1868 steel check valves for petroleum industry, BS-1873 steel globe and check valves for petroleum industry, BS-1965 welding pipe fittings, BS-2080 face-to-face / end-to-end dimensions of valves, BS-2598 glass pipeline and fittings, BS-3059 boiler and superheater tubes, BS-3063 dimensions of gaskets for pipe flanges, BS-3381 metallic spiral wound gaskets, BS-3600 dimensions of welded and seamless pipes and tubes, CS pipes and tubes for pressure purposes at room temperature, BS-3602 CS pipes and tubes for pressure purposes at high temperature, BS-3603 CS and alloy steel pipes and tubes for pressure purposes at low temperature, BS-36 for alloy steel pipes and tubes for high temperature, BS-3605 SS pipes and tubes for pressure purposes, BS-3799 socket weld and screw fittings, BS-3974 pipe hangers, slides and roller type supports, BS-4346 PVC pressure pipe, joints and fittings, BS-4500 for steel, cast iron and copper alloy fittings, BS-5150 cast iron wedge and double disc gate valves for general purposes, BS-5151 cast iron gate parallel slide valves for general purposes, BS-5152 cast iron globe and check valves for general purposes, BS-5153 cast iron check valves for general purposes, BS-5154 copper alloy globe, gate and check valves, BS-5155 cast iron and cast steel butterfly valves for general purposes, BS-5156 diaphragm valves for general purposes, BS-5157 steel gate parallel slide valves for general purposes, BS-5158 cast iron and cast steel plug valves for general purposes, BS-5159 cast iron and cast steel ball valves for general purposes, BS-5160 flanged steel globe and check valves for general purposes, BS-5163 flanged cast iron wedge gate valves for general purposes, BS-5351 steel ball valves for petroleum industry, BS-5352 steel gate, globe and check valves, smaller than 2 inch and deep, BS-5353 specifications for plug valves, BS-5391 specifications for ABS pressure pipes, BS-5392 specifications for ABS fittings, BS-5433 Specifications for underground stop valves for water services. BS 5480. Specifications for GRP pipes and fittings. BS 6364. Specifications for valves for cryogenic services. BS 6755. Testing of valves. BS 6759. Safety valves. Indian Standards. Bureau of Indian Standards. BIS has so far not developed an Indian standard for the design of piping systems. Hence, fancy standards ASME 31.1 and 31.3 are widely used for the design. These standards also accept materials covered in other standards. Unlike American standards, Indian standards cover dimensions and material specifications under the same standard number. There are no groupings based on branch of engineering. Some of the most commonly referred Indian standards by piping engineers are IS 210, grey iron castings, IS 226, structural steel superseded by IS 2062, IS 554, dimensions of pipe threads, IS 778, specification for copper alloy T, globe and check valves, IS 780, specification for sluice valves for 50 MP to 300 MP, IS 1239 Part I and II specification for mild steel tubes and fittings, IS 1363, hexagonal bolts, screws and nuts of grade C, IS 1364, hexagonal bolts, screws and nuts, grade A and B is 1367, technical supply conditions for threaded steel fasteners is 1536, centrifugally cast iron pipes is 1537, vertically cast iron pipes is 1538, cast iron fittings is 1870, comparison of Indian and overseas standards is 1879, malleable iron pipe fittings is 1978, lined pipe is 1979, high test line pipe is 2002, steel plates is 2016, plain washers is 2041, steel plates for pressure vessels used at moderate and low temperature is 2062, steel for general structural purposes is 2379, color code for identification of pipelines is 2712, compressed asbestos fiber jointing is 2825, code for unfired pressure vessels is 2906, specification for sluice valves for 350 MP to 1200 MP is 3076, specification for LDPE pipes is 3114, code of practice for laying pipes is 3516, cast iron flanges and flanged fittings for petroleum industry is 3589, seamless for ERW pipes of 150 MP to 2000 MP is 4038, specifications for foot valves is 4179, sizes for pressure vessels and leading dimensions is 4853, radiographic examination of butt weld joints in pipes is 4864 to 4870, shelf flanges for vessels and equipments is 4984, specification for HDPE pipes is 4985, specification for PVC pipes is 5312, specification for check valves is 5572, classification of hazardous area for electrical installation is 5822, code of practice for laying welded steel pipes is 6157, inspection and testing of valve is 6286, seamless and welded pipes for sub-zero temperatures 6392, steel pipe flanges. Is 6630, seamless alloy steel pipes for high temperature service. Is 6913, stainless steel tubes for food and beverage industry. Is 7181, horizontally cast iron pipes. Is 7240, code of practice for cold insulation. Is 7413, code of practice for hot insulation. Is 7719, metallic spiral wound gaskets. Is 7806, stainless steel castings. Is 7899, alloy steel castings for pressure services. Is 8008, specification for molded HDPE fittings. Is 8360, specification for fabricated HDPE fittings. Is 9890, ball valves for general purposes. Is 10,221, code of practice for coating and wrapping of underground MS pipelines. Is 10,592, eyewash and safety showers. Is 10,605, steel globe valves for petroleum industries. Is 10,611, steel gate valves for petroleum industries. Is 10,711, size of drawing sheets. Is 10,805, foot valves. Is 10,989, cast or forged steel check valves for petroleum industry. Is 10,990, technical drawings for simplified representation of pipelines. Is 11,790, code of practice for preparation of butt welding ends for valves, flanges and fittings. Is 11,791, diaphragm valves for general purposes. Is 11,792, steel ball valves for petroleum industry. Is 12,709, specifications for GRP pipes. Is 13,049, specifications for diaphragm-type float-operated valves. Is 13,095, butterfly valves. Is 13,257, ring-type joint gasket and groups for flanges. There are certain other international standards, which are also referred in piping industry. These are the standards of Germany and JIS standards of Japan. These standards are more popular and equivalent. Periodic review of the standards by the committee are done, and these are revised to incorporate the modified features based on the research and feedback from industry. It is, hence, necessary that the latest editions of the codes and standards are referred for the design. Thanks for learning. If you like this video, please give a like to my channel and subscribe it.